Good evening, everyone. I'd like to begin by asking two questions. How did the universe begin? And why did the universe begin? At first glance, these questions might sound identical. But when you go to answer them, your mind instinctively reaches for two completely different answers. For the first one, you might think of something more factual, like the Big Bang Theory. For the second one, you might think of something more philosophical, perhaps a creation story that you grew up with. What's interesting is that neither of these answers are wrong. We're just conditioned to believe that one of them is more correct based on scientific reasoning or nostalgia. I'm Saisha Kodali, a student from UWC Isaac, Japan, and this distinction between facts and stories has stayed with me for years. As a child, I thoroughly enjoyed watching mythological TV shows like the Mahabharata and Ramayana. Perhaps it was because they answered the questions that lived in my childhood imagination. Could animals really talk? Could someone really lift an entire mountain on the tip of their little finger? Could something as vast as the universe itself have been born from something as poetic as a cosmic egg? To a child, these ideas weren't unbelievable. They were invitations to think beyond what I could see. Perhaps it was because I answered the same questions in science class, just in a different language. Different stories, perhaps, but born from the same innate human curiosity. A couple of years later, when I was 15, I moved to a boarding school in Japan with over 80 different nationalities, encountering a completely new way of looking at life. I stayed up until late hours into the night talking to people that I just met about beliefs, traditions, philosophies, sensing the same wonder that I had once felt with the stories that I grew up with. At the same time, there was a voice in the back of my mind nullifying one reason of how the world came to be for another, just because it seemed more probable or because I was nostalgic. Over time, I realized that the different ways I'd heard the world come to be were never answers to the same question. This leads me to my next question. Why is it that we're so uncomfortable letting two perspectives exist at once? Perhaps it's because binaries are comforting. They simplify a world that's anything but simple. They tell us that if one idea is right, the other has to be wrong. Let me simplify this and tell you what happens when you go beyond the binary. What lies beyond this binary is curiosity. The curiosity to keep learning even when you've found an answer. And the humility to understand that another perspective might deepen rather than diminish your understanding. Let me give you an everyday example. Raise your hand if you watch IPL. Raise your hand if you're a die-hard fan of one of the teams. CSK, RCB, SRH. Now imagine I asked an RCB fan to cheer for CSK. That might be asking for too much. That's a binary. It's a rivalry. It's the instinct to divide ourselves into us and them. But when you take a step back and you look at everyone who had their hand raised, they had it for the same reason, their love for cricket. Now, I'm not asking the fan of one team to stop supporting their team. I'm simply asking them to look beyond the binary and notice what joins us all. It's the connection. We don't just do this with cricket teams. We do it with people, ideologies, places. We take one thing that we know about someone and we make it entirely what we know about them. I realized that I did this too. Some of my closest friends are from places like Iran, Israel, Lebanon. Today, when I hear these countries mentioned, I don't think about conflict. I think about people. The friendships, the shared laughter, the late night conversations, and the lives they've trusted me enough to share. it wasn't always this way. Before I met them, these countries existed in my mind as conflicts to study, statistics to remember, and horrific stories on the news. I'd quietly separated their world from mine until I realized that between the headlines and the friendships, the distance disappeared. I wondered how many other things in life had I been looking at through only one perspective. Take fire, for example. In science class, I learned that fire is combustion, a chemical reaction that releases heat and light. It taught me exactly how a flame burned. But growing up in India, fire meant Diwali. It meant lighting diyas with my family, eating more sweets than I could count, and watching the sky light up with celebration. A couple of years later, when I moved to Japan, I remember competing with my friends to see whose firework, or hanabi as they call it there, burned out first. Different countries, different traditions, the very same fire. I realized that I'd unknowingly placed fire into two different boxes. In one, it was science class, chemical reaction, source of sustenance. In the other, it was Diwali, hanabi, friends, and family. Until I realized there had only ever been one fire. So why does any of this matter today? Somewhere along the way, we've become so focused on finding the right answer that we've forgotten the value of asking better questions. Our sole focus is shifted on to find the academically right answer that we often forget to experience it. We ask how, but we don't often ask why. We understand something, but we don't always appreciate it. In our determination to explain everything and anything, we rush to understand it. We rush to classify, to define, to prove, when perhaps the most meaningful moments in life ask us to simply pause and wonder. Wonder what you might find when you choose to keep looking instead of sticking to a side. Wonder what happens when the headline turns into the face of a friend. Wonder what facts lie beyond the story and what stories beyond the fact. Truth is much like a kaleidoscope. The very same pieces, it only changes when we change the way how we look at it. The pattern only changes when we change our perspective. So if I were to ask you again how and why the universe began, I wouldn't expect anyone's opinion in this room to be nullified. But I do hope the next time you're faced with two seemingly opposing ideologies, you take your time to understand them rather than rushing to choose one. Thank you.